The rain didn't stop these drivers from taming the monster mile, but on-track incidents and pit road mistakes certainly did. Plus, a Cinderella story in the making for $1 million that nobody saw coming, including myself. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Taylor Kitchen, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line on the ATYL Media channel. What a race weekend at Dover. Of course, rain played a factor in the Xfinity Series event. Shout out to Connor Zillick for winning that rain-delayed race. And of course, the Cup Series race. We had weather move in very lightly during the first half of Stage 3. We were able to get underway pretty quickly, and then we went to a screeching halt towards the end of the final stage with 14 laps to go. The red flag came out, and props to NASCAR for working hard to get the rest of the race in, so we went the full distance and then some. The NASCAR Cup Series had 2 overtime restarts, and on the second overtime restart, a winner was deemed. We had Denny Hamlin going up against his teammate Chase Briscoe, and it seemed like a runaway for Chase Briscoe because he had the fresher tires. But on the restart and during that final overtime finish, the two made contact. Denny Hamlin jetted ahead and went on to win his 4th race of the season, his 58th career victory in the Cup Series, putting him 11th on the all-time win list. This win had me reflecting on Denny Hamlin and his past few seasons and just where he's at in his career. He's 44 years old, and typically at this point, we either see drivers plummet in terms of performance or we see them really hit their stride and hit their prime. And I think Denny Hamlin has hit that sweet spot in his career where he's consistently getting great results and, of course, capturing all of those race wins. And I think about where Denny Hamlin is right now, personally, professionally, positively, the birth of his son, negatively, depending on who you ask, this federal antitrust lawsuit. He has a lot of things off track that could be weighing down the performance on track, but that does not seem to be the case for Denny Hamlin. And Denny Hamlin post-race on the TNT broadcast was very transparent, saying, "I was pretty nervous going into this season." He had lost his crew chief, Chris Gabehart, and there was a change bringing on Chris Gale, but Denny said that Chris Gale came to the team and said, "Hey, I'm going to do what you guys are doing, and I'm going to adjust accordingly or enhance what we're doing as a team accordingly," and it's seemingly worked. Chris Gale and Denny Hamlin have gelled together so well. Obviously, 4 race wins this season, capitalizing on every single moment. So what started off as a scary, I guess the Sunday scaries for Denny Hamlin to start the season, is ending up going really well. Now, I'm hoping this means that the team can really pull it together when it comes to the playoffs, because we've seen Denny Hamlin be in the championship 4 before. We've seen him so close to a championship and lose it during that final 10 race stint of the season. The question is Denny Hamlin going to be a champion ever in the sport, and could he be that champion this year? And that's yet to be determined. So we shall see, but a great win for that 11 team today at Dover. Looking at the rest of our results now, of course, in that second position, Chase Briscoe. And something I thought was really interesting to hear about Briscoe this race weekend is he felt pressure to perform this race, knowing how good this 19 car has been in the past with Martin Truex Jr. behind the wheel. And Chase Briscoe was able to deliver, so a great result for him. I know he would have wanted the win, but I think he'll take a second place for this race weekend. In the third position, Alex Bowman, one of his better tracks. Good to see him finish inside the top 3. And fourth, Kyle Larson went from, I think, 25th on the grid to start this race to 4th. Never doubt the power of that 5 car. In 5th, we had Ty Gibbs. 6th, Chase Elliott. He won the first stage, and then unfortunately, a pit road error during stage 2 cost them a few spots on track. The car dropped from the jack too early, so they were kind of playing catch up. Ultimately, Chase Elliott, of course, was able to make his way back into the top 5, top 10, and ended up shuffling out to the 6th place finish. In 7th, Bubba Wallace. 8th, Ryan Blaney. A good fight for him today. 9th, Chris Buescher, and I need to mention here, it was hot and humid at Dover this weekend. It was not pleasant weather, and Buescher lost his cool suit. His cool suit stopped working very early in the race, and the fact that he was able to tough it out for a 9th place finish says so much about Chris Buescher and his drive. So Chris Buescher finishing in that 9th position. And 10th, Brad Keselowski. I want to point out here that in the past 5 races, 3 of the results for Brad Keselowski have been inside the top 10. That is quite the turnaround for this number 6 team and consistency that they need, so props to them at RFK. There's one more result I want to mention because you guys are probably thinking about this too, but Christopher Bell, he had such a dominant car today, a race-winning car. I thought that he could have won the race at least, but finished in that 18th position. At the start of stage 3, Bell just spun on his own. It looked like the car just kind of bottomed out. He spun, and from there on, they were playing catch-up. Adam Stevens went over the radio to Christopher Bell and said, "Hey, no sweat. We have the best car. There seems to be no damage under the car. So, like, we're good. We're going to get 4 fresh tires and just work our way back to the front, which they did. Adam Stevens made the call to run long during the rest of stage 3, battling against that weather, which got Christopher Bell in prime position to win this race. Then, Unfortunately, with less than 10 to go, Christopher Bell spun again, this time under his teammate Denny Hamlin, battling for that first position and what ultimately could have been the race win. And if that wasn't enough to put a damper on the 20s day, he ended up speeding on pit road following that spin. Worked his way back to 18th, which is pretty good. But what could have been for Christopher Bell is just a gut punch. This track just seems to elude him every now and then. He tends to spin at this track quite often, so hopefully can clean up those mistakes for the future. But man, what a disappointing day for the 20. But overall, though, for 3 out of the 4 Joe Gibbs Racing cars, a stellar day. So race-winning implications with on-track incidents in a pit road error for Christopher Bell. And speaking of on-track incidents, an on-track incident for Zayn Smith changed everything with the in-season tournament and really shuffled the point standings around that cutoff line. When Zayn Smith wrecked on that first overtime restart, he made contact with Ryan Preece. And as we know, if we remember from the playoff standings from last week, Ryan Preece and Bubba Wallace are in an intense points battle around that cutoff line with only 3 points separating them at the end of last race. With that contact made in that overtime restart with Ryan Preece and Zayn Smith, it widened that points battle. Ryan Preece now below 16 to the cutoff line. Bubba Wallace plus 16. Above Bubba Wallace, we have Chris Buescher plus 44 to the good. And directly below Ryan Preece, we have Kyle Busch actually getting closer to that cutoff line with minus 39 to the good. And that caution for Zayn Smith didn't just change the point standings around the cutoff line, but it made the entire difference for the in-season tournament because that caution gave Ty Dillon the lucky dog spot, getting him back on the lead lap, continuing to trap John Hunter Nemechek down a lap. And that made all the difference because Ty Dillon and John Hunter Nemechek were going head-to-head in this battle to see who would be one of the final drivers to compete for $1 million. And Ty Dillon, the Cinderella story of this in-season tournament, moves on and will battle Ty Gibbs for the $1 million at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Ty Show, Ty Squared, whatever you want to call it. We're going to see the Ties battle it out for that $1 million prize. And I've got to be honest, I really want Ty Dillon to win this. Nothing against Ty Gibbs. I'm just saying, like, I love the Cinderella story. I love what this would mean for Ty Dillon and the Kaulig Racing team. I want that to happen so bad. But it's going to be a tough battle. It's going to be pretty tough. Joe Gibbs Racing equipment versus Kaulig equipment. Not saying it's impossible, but you know, it would be pretty cool to see Ty Dillon win. So we will see it in Indianapolis Motor Speedway next weekend, but Ty versus Ty for the $1 million. The time has come to rate this race above or below the yellow line, and I'm quite honestly undecided about how I feel about this Dover race, so I'm very curious to hear your thoughts too, because going into this, recording this, I was like 50% on the line because I just don't know, but I don't feel like this race really deserves that. I will say though, 400 laps at Dover, do not think we should be doing that. We got to lap 300 and I was like, we have 100 laps to go. Are you kidding me? Obviously, the rain delays towards stage 3 didn't really help matters as much, feeling like this race was drawing itself out. But I think a 300 lapper at Dover is perfectly fine and sound. I will say the track did an excellent job on this event. It looked like so much fun, fiending around Summer with Miles the Monster. Like, it looked like a really good time and it looked like the fans really enjoyed themselves. But 400 laps, not loving that. And going into this race, we also didn't really know what we were gonna get either because practice and qualifying was rained out. We were coming into this event with a new tire that hadn't been run yet at any other track. We saw earlier in the race that these tires were cording like crazy because these teams really didn't know the limits. So that was pretty fun to watch too because the track was green, didn't know how it was gonna race, but it was slick, it was hot, it was fun. But at the same time, we still have this prevalent little problem over here, which is the aero issue with the Gen 7 car that just eats at the product that we have on track. When you have a driver like Denny Hamlin sitting 5th on the grid, struggling to pass a lapped car for position because aero just sucks, that's a problem. Not a huge fan of that, but that's a problem. But I don't want to harp on that issue too much because we've harped on it before. But again, kind of trying to balance my thoughts of like being compelled by the unknown versus having kind of the here's what I think is going to happen actually happen situation. I'm all over the place with my thoughts on this, you guys. I think for right now, I'm going to give this race a 60%, which is above the yellow line. I could move it to be less. I could move it to be more, but that seems fair for me right now. I will say overall, Dover and Summer, I think, was a huge success. Really liked the change in date, but maybe make the race a few laps less, potentially. What are your thoughts on the race at Dover? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we're done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line. Make sure to go to AboveTheYellowLine.com to learn more about us, our partners, and to follow us on all social media platforms for motorsports content all week long, all day long, all month long, all year long. We've got all your motorsports content right here at ATYL Media. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.